11,689 days without a drink? Holy.
Don't stress, live life one day at a time. Don't drink or drug and you'll be fine.
It's my 32nd anniversary of being sober. And let me tell you something. I never thought I'd make it this far. I didn't think I'd be alive this long, let alone celebrate 32 years of sobriety. Just to give you an idea, my anniversary date is August 31st of 1992. It was when I first walked into an AA room, and that was a day after my last drunk. And my birthday was just 4 days ago, August 27th, and I turned 64. So 32 years, half my life without a drink. And, when I was drinking, I loved to drink. That's what we did, us drinkers. I wasn't much into the drugs. Or I wasn't into drugs at all, but I sure enjoyed drinking. So if you're new, and if you just, you're on YouTube and you're going through channels and, looking for some help to get sober, you came to the right place. If you're thinking you can't do it, man, 11,689 days, and you're thinking, I can't even go 2 or 3 days without a drink or a drug. Let me tell you something. Everybody thinks that way. And I know a lot of people that, they all started the same way. Just one day, it's a cliche, but one day at a time. You go without the drink, you go without the drug, and you just pick up a momentum. And then it keeps going and going and going. And then when certain issues in our lives pop up, we automatically tell ourselves, yeah, I can't drink. For me, I started a saying, 32 years ago, I don't drink no matter what, and no matter what means no matter what. For the podcast, I use I don't drink or use no matter what, and no matter what means no matter what, because that's what I want you to start saying. If you're struggling, you just got to keep those words in your mind. You don't drink or use no matter what, and no matter what means no matter what. And I found out early on in my sobriety when everybody was talking about, all the reasons why they drink, right? We can all come up with all these reasons why we drink, or I like to call them excuses, but there's plenty of excuses to drink. There's plenty of excuses to screw up our lives, right? I started focusing on why I didn't drink. And it made getting sober so much easier, because for me, when I ask myself that question, why don't you drink anymore? It's because I remember my last drunk. I remember the times, in my past where I've been arrested, I screwed up really good relationships, got in fights with people, totaled a few cars, and I started saying, I don't want to be that guy anymore. I don't want that in my life for just a little bit of pleasure. And don't get me wrong, drinking, for the most part, gave me a lot of pleasure because I did it for such a long time. And stupidly, every time I got into trouble, I couldn't wait to pick up a drink again because now I was either pissed off or I can't believe I did that, or this person did that to me or whatever. So I figured I'd start drinking to ease the pain, which we all do. And if you're into drugs, you do the same thing, right? So start thinking about why either you are staying sober or why the good part about you getting sober. Screw all the shit you did in your past. I'm telling you that right now. Learn from it, but forget about it. Start telling yourself why you shouldn't put a drink or a drug in you. And focus on those reasons, okay? And no matter what, don't put the drink or the drug in you. Because you have to get to that point in your life. Everybody's different when you finally get it. And I mean, you get it. You say, you know what? I'm done. I'm not going to drink again. I'm not going to put a drug in me. I'm done. And you move forward. I've said this in other podcasts, but this is how I had to look at it. And maybe that'll help you. It's kind of like being in a relationship. If you're in a relationship with somebody and it's going really good, man, you guys meet, it feels so good, all the romance, and all of a sudden, things aren't so good anymore, and you have a fight, and you leave, right? You guys split. But you get lonely and you start remembering all the good times. And somebody picks up the phone and calls the other person, how you doing? I miss you. Yeah, you might want to get together again? Sure. And of course you get together, and the intimacy, the sex is really good, and it's thrilling again. And then something else happens. You get into an argument and you split. Maybe you have a little bit more time, but you're sitting home, you're alone, you're wondering what the other person's doing, who they're with. The other person is thinking about you, what's he doing or what she's doing, and who are they with. Finally, somebody picks up the phone, or you run into each other, and you start thinking, oh, how good it used to be. And you always forgot about the trouble you guys were in together. But what happens? You get back together again. Sometimes it's even longer than expected. You stay together. The only thing that was really keeping you together was maybe the sex was really good, or you just didn't want to be alone anymore. But then something happens one day where somebody in that relation says, fuck this, I'm done. And they walk away. And no matter what happened, they're home alone, and that thought about that person comes to their mind, and they know how easy it would be to pick up that phone and have a little conversation, and the person will come running back to them, and, jump in the sack or whatever. But then you regret it the next day. So you don't even bother doing it. And finally, for whatever reason, you decide that's it. That happens a lot in marriages, right? Finally, one person says, I'm done with all this bullshit, and they walk away and they don't look back. Well, that's kind of like what drinking is, right? Booze and alcohol. I used to love drinking, and then something would go bad, get in trouble, arrested, maybe total a car, get in a bad relationship, get into fights with somebody. Then you quit for a day or two, say you're not going to be that person anymore, and you pick up the drink again, and the same shit happens. You get into trouble, the relationship again, you're fighting because you're drinking, and then you go, okay, I'm not gonna drink anymore, I promise, baby, I love you. And then you're good for a few days, maybe even a week or two, and then one day, you pick up that drink again, and maybe you can control it for a little while, but boy, one of those days you just get shit-faced again, and all the trouble comes back, right? And finally, that person goes, I'm done, and they walk away, and that's it. And that's where you got to get in your relationship with alcohol or drugs. You got to hate it. You got to hate what it does to you. You can't focus on the feeling that it gives you when either you're drunk or high or whatever. You have to keep telling yourself why you don't want to be that person, why you don't want that high any longer, why you don't want to be buzzed any longer, because it only gets you into trouble. And once I started thinking about it that way, it was so much easier for me to stay sober. And I had to stay away from people who, like for instance, when I was going to AA, and there's nothing against AA. I mean, it helped me immensely early on in my sobriety, because being alone down here in Florida, I knew that there was always somebody at the room. When it was open, I think it usually opened at 10 o'clock in the morning and it closed at 10 o'clock in the evening. So if I didn't want to even go to a meeting, I just wanted to go and hang out. They had a coffee bar, you get a soda, coffee, whatever. But there was always somebody there that you could talk to. And it kept me from thinking about, hey, I don't have anybody down here, I'm alone. And back in the old days, I'd go to the bar. Well, I didn't want to go to the bar. So I went there, and it was a good thing for me. And I would suggest that to people, if you're alone and you're thinking about getting sober, check out AA. Nothing says you have to stay there forever. I know you'll hear that in the rooms of AA, but you don't have to. But it's a good place to start out if you need somebody to help you. I know plenty of people who just quit cold turkey, and I'm talking about heavy drinkers. I'll use the term alcoholic. I hate that term. You'll rarely hear me say it on this channel. I say it's just people who abuse alcohol or abuse drugs. But they stopped, cold turkey. And they did it, and that's fine. Other people I know went to the church. They gave their life to Christ and repented from their past and didn't go back. That works. So whatever's going to work for you, you got to do it. I don't preach, this is the only way to get sober. Go to AA, go do this, go do that. Everybody's different. But the only thing I will say is find that reason or that why you're staying sober. And if you're saying, well, I'm not sober now, well, begin as if you are sober. Why am I going to stay sober? And you start going through all these reasons why you're staying sober, and that's so much more powerful than, well, here's why I used to drink. Here's, these are my reasons. Forget it. Just start focusing on why you're not drinking or why you're not going to drink. And it just makes it so much easier because, unfortunately, I met a lot of people that quit drinking and drugging and went right back out to it. Man, some of them had sobriety. I knew one person who was sober 5 years, man, and one day decided he was going to pick up a drink again, and unfortunately, he never went back. I was in the bar business for a while when I was sober, even early on in my sobriety, and a gentleman came in and was sitting at the bar, and I just came out of my office. I had to get something, and I noticed him, and I haven't seen him in years, but he recognized me, and I recognized him, and there was a bottle of, beer in front of him. And what I remembered about him was he would always take a bike to the meetings because he had like 2 or 3 DUIs, and he couldn't get a license for 3-5 years or whatever it was. So it was a while since I seen the person. Well, I went over and just, hey, man, how you doing? He's like, good, good, good. And we got to talking a little. He's like, hey, you can tell I don't go to meetings anymore. I said, that's your business. He said, let me ask you something, Joey. How do you do it? How can you do it? And I said, you really want to know? And he says, yeah. I picked up his drink. I walked over to the trash can, and I dumped it in the trash. And I walked back over. I said, I don't drink, man. That's the only way to do it. And he goes, yeah, you're right. And he was just looking at me. And I said, you want another beer, though? I threw yours away. You want that? Another one? He goes, yeah, no problem. So I gave him his drink, or his beer. And he stayed there for a while. And then I noticed he was getting smashed. And I called the cab. He didn't know it, but I called the cab. And then I went up. I grabbed his keys off the bar. And I said, listen, he's here to take you home. Well, I got my car. I said, no, you're not driving. You're taking the cab. Oh, you can't do that? I said, yes, I can. I got your keys. He'll take you. Well, the next day he came to pick up his car, and he was mad as hell. And I said, hey, here's your keys. And I said, but don't ever come back in this bar again. He's like, oh, why? Why, you all uppity now because you have a bar? I said, no. It's because I used to see you in those rooms all the time, coming in complaining that you had to take a bicycle everywhere. And you were embarrassed about it. Well, now you got a car, and you want to throw all that away again. And last night, you got pretty shit-faced in here. I wasn't going to babysit you. I left for a while, came back, and there you were drunk again. And I was like, you know what? I wasn't going to let you do that to yourself. Not, with me knowing what you've been through. And plus, my bartenders knew they shouldn't have been, serving you like that. So I said, so don't ever come back. I wish you the best of luck. But that's it. And he left. And, I just felt afterwards that's what I needed to do. And it was tough, being sober and working in the bar business because a lot of times I would see people get out of hand, and I had to handle those people a little differently than I should because for some reason I was seeing myself in that person. But what quickly made me turn that around was one day there was a couple of guys pretty drunk at a table, and I went up to them and told them, unfortunately they're going to have to leave because they were giving some of the women a hard time. and I had a couple of my bouncers with me, and we were just talking, but I was leaning over the table, not in a threatening manner, but just because the music was playing so they could hear me. And all of a sudden, my bouncer out of nowhere comes and hits one guy, and then the other guy stands up. My other bouncer hits him, and now we got a fight going on. And when everything was said and done, we got the guys out of the club and everything. I said, what the hell was going on? And turns out that one of the gentlemen had a knife in his boot, and he was reaching to pull it out while I was talking to him. Both of my bouncers were ex-policemen, so they knew what to look for. But after that, my attitude was, if you got drunk and caused trouble in the bar or whatever, you're going, and had to do what you had to do. So I don't want to be like that anymore. And working in the bars, I just used to remind me all the time why I don't drink. So get to that point in your life where you need to be in order to view yourself as somebody who no longer drinks alcohol or uses drugs. And if you can do that early on in your sobriety, I promise you, it's so much easier. And there are some tools out there, that AA teaches, and, your church, or if you're online, there's a bunch of resources online that could help you. Check out some of my podcasts. I'm not one that tells anybody, here's what you better do. I just make suggestions that work for me, and hopefully they'll work for you. But there's only one thing that works. Time in and time out. That's it. There's one proven method throughout all these years and throughout the ages that work. And it's this. If you don't put a drink in you or a drug in you, there's no way you're going to get drunk or high. So remember, don't drink or use no matter what, and no matter what means no matter what. And then just get on with your life. And it can be that easy if you make it that easy. If you want to complicate things, then you can go out and complicate them, but there's no need to be, because life is going to throw you enough shit, when you're sober. Trust me, I've dealt with a lot of heartaches, a lot of problems, these past 32 years where, I could have picked up a drink if I didn't remember that that's not an option for me anymore. Whatever I have to do to get through any situation, I do it, but I do it without picking up a drink. So hopefully next year on my 33rd anniversary, I'll come back and talk with you. But please like and subscribe. I'm really going to try to grow this channel. I've had people reaching out to me quite a bit over the years, and even the past few months, talking to me about, the way they abuse alcohol and the way they abuse drugs. So I'm going to probably redo this whole channel, and I'm going to bring people on with me. I'm going to talk with them about, how they got sober. What did they do to get sober? And sometimes I got a few people that want to talk online with me or live with me that are still drinking and are looking for some help. So whatever, you got to make your own choice. And I've always said, don't drink or use no matter what, and no matter what means no matter what. And truthfully, the only story that's going to keep you sober is your own. Because the only story that keeps me sober all these years, these 32 years, is my own. So until the next time, thank you for stopping by, and please hit like and subscribe. Thank you.
Think about your serenity. Be grateful for your sobriety.